Okay, so what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is how to build a computer. Now, I know it sounds really, really hard to the people who haven't done it before, but don't worry, it is much easier than it sounds. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and break down all the parts, at least the basic ones that you need. We'll explain what they do, and then we'll go ahead and we'll put them together or explain to you how to put them together. Now, there used to be a hard way to do this. The hard way was going online for every part that you would buy and finding a list of parts that were compatible with it, and then double checking all your stuff with each part down the list, which is quite a task. But the best part is that after that, you just cross your fingers and hope that it would work. Luckily, we don't have to do that. So now you just have a very condensed way of doing it. You want to start with determining a price range. Is it going to be a budget PC you're just using for, something here and there? Is it a gaming PC you're going to use so it's going to be more high end? Is it going to be for kids and family, or, primarily for work? Now, after that, you then select your basic parts, and those are going to be your hard drive, which is your also the HDD, where you store your memory, the RAM memory for speed and basically opening programs and multiple programs, motherboard, one of the main parts, everything plugs into, power supply. We've got a CD drive, and then we also have a couple other parts. So what you want to start doing is you want to research efficiently to begin with. There are a couple sites that you can use. CyberPower PC is a personal favorite of mine. That's why I started in the presentation for you. PC Part Picker, excuse me, and also the iBuyPower are great. They will allow you to choose different boxes and then show you price differences and only allow you to choose parts that are compatible. So that's the way to go. Now with hard drives, the first part, there are a couple flavors. You have your standard hard drive, which is great for your money, big on size, not great on speed though. Then you have the SSDs. Those are more expensive, much faster, but generally a little bit smaller. The M2 is just going to be the newer version of the SSD. Next is going to be your random access memory. That's determined by your motherboard. So whichever motherboard you pick is going to, tell you what memory to get. There are two typical flavors. You either have the DDR3 or the DDR4. Threes are the older type and fours are the newer type. The next one that's going to be coming out is DDR5. Now, the major part next here, that's actually the most major part, is the motherboard. Everything plugs into your motherboard. So you can pretty much think of it as almost like a giant wall plug. But what it does is it pushes the information or the electricity between all of the different individual parts that are going to be inside of your computer case. Now with motherboards, there are going to be a couple different flavors. There is the mini ATX, the micro ATX, the ATX, and then a couple other options that we won't cover. But basically, they go by their name for size ratio. Even though I think micro should be smaller than mini, mini is 6 by 7 by 6 by 7, micro is 9 by 6 by 9 by 6, and then the next one is a little bit bigger. So depending on the size, that's what you want to get, that's what you end up picking. Now, for power supplies, that's going to power every part in the computer. It's going to attach to the motherboard, the CD drive, the graphics cards, at least newer ones, and then the hard drive. And it also receives its power from the wall plug. So whenever you plug it in, that's what you're actually plugging in, is the power supply. Now, keep in mind, there is a little red or black switch on the back of that. That is for whatever country you're in. So don't switch it, don't press it, leave it on 110 to 115 if you're in the United States, because it does change the incoming voltage, and that can really screw with some parts if you don't know what you're doing. Now the next part on the list is going to be the processors, or CPU. There are two major types, AMD and Intel. AMD is a little bit cheaper, whereas Intel is a little more expensive. They both make laptop and desktop processors, or CPUs. Again, the type of processor you get is going to be determined by your motherboard. So if you get an AMD, you'll get an AMD processor. If you get an Intel, you'll get an Intel. Now for graphics cards, you have a couple options. You can do one card, or you can do two cards. You can actually connect two cards together with a special SLI bridge, and they'll work as one card, no problem. That one, the two companies are going to be NVIDIA or AMD, really, price versus power. NVIDIA is really for gaming, and AMD is generally for everything else for me. Now the next part doesn't seem very important, is the case. again, going to be determined by your motherboard size. So if you get an ATX motherboard, you'll get an ATX case. Micro ATX motherboard will give you a micro ATX case, and then a mini ATX will, of course, give you a mini ATX case. Keep in mind, some of them do have built-in fans and lights that get plugged into the power supply. Next is going to be an optional part. That is the CD drive. Now, I say optional because most computers are shifting away from CDs to USBs, but you can still get a USB external drive if you'd like. They come in two sizes usually, the laptop size and the desktop size. Now that we've covered all the parts, it's pretty much time to put them together. This is actually the simple part. What you want to do is open all of your parts and lay them out so you have them all in one area. You want to grab a screwdriver in case you need one, and then begin with the motherboard and the case. You want to secure the motherboard in the case with the 4 screws on the corners, and then the faceplate for the motherboard, where all the ports go, is actually going to go inside the case and get tacked on that way. Now it's just like Legos. You want to move on to the power supply next. Again, 4 corner screws like usual, and it'll be perfectly tight. After that, you want to make sure that you can connect your power supply to the motherboard now. Basically, they only fit into one spot, so you can't mess it up. Just basically want to make sure you plug it into the motherboard, get it nice and snug. Now next, more Legos. You want to make sure you slide the hard drive in. There's a spot on the computer case labeled HDD or hard drive, and just screw it in so it stays kind of tight, and then connect that to the power supply with the cord that fits, and then connect it to the motherboard with the cable that was included. After that, you can snap the RAM sticks in. They don't require any extra cables or anything. They're pretty straightforward. The last little things are just sliding in the CPU. It only goes in one direction. You want to put some thermal paste on there just in case, you need some. Well, you will need some, but make sure you get enough, mainly because it's going to transfer the heat. You want to make sure that you don't overheat your computer. Now, after doing all of those things, the last step is just going to be installing Windows or Mac or Linux, whatever you want to run, really. So just grab whatever, install media you have. If you have a CD or if you have it on a USB or, however you have it, go ahead and stick it in and then follow the on-screen instructions, and then that will pretty much be how you build a computer. All right, thanks for watching.